Good afternoon and welcome to the Rotary Club of Fort Worth. It is July 14th, 2023, and there's no better place to be for lunch. Thank you everyone for coming today. First up, we've got Adolph Aguiar with our invocation, followed by past President Doug Briley with the national anthem. Please stand. Come on up.
I was told to make our invocation 6 minutes, so I divided by 6, so it'll be a minute shorter. All right. Let us pray. Lord, we come together as a Rotary community, seeking your wisdom, guidance, and blessing. As we gather together, may your presence empower us and give us strength. We pray for our leaders that you'll just continue to bless them and lead them with wisdom. We pray for our endeavors here at Rotary, that you will bless those endeavors and that you will lead us into successful community outreach. Lord, that you will just lead us successfully to be able to impact and make a difference in our community. So we just pray this afternoon that you will be with us, that you'll guide us, and that you'll bless our time together. Amen.
I don't know about y'all, but that is absolutely one of my favorite songs in the world. Okay, Crystal Galvan, please come on up. Oh, she's not here. Okay, well, we got a guest welcome. Okay, welcome guests. Where are our guests? If you're a guest to our club today, please raise your hand. All right, well, thank every one of you for being here. We're glad to have you here today. Tom, you good? All right. So, a tradition of our club and a tradition of Rotary is the four-way test. Four-way test was designed many, many years ago by a Rotarian going into a business that needed a rework. And when he went in there, he found several processes in failure, and most of those were regarding character. The character of the people reflecting in the character of the business. So please join us as we recite the four-way test, which is something that's near and dear to every Rotarian in all we think, say, or do. Number one, is it the truth? Number two, is it fair to all concerned? Number three, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And number four, will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you. So, today we have a guest with us. Paul, come on up. First of all, I'd like to, while he's up on his way up here, last week, at the end of every program, we give a gift to the speaker, and that gift is just a memento of a donation we make, and we'll talk about this later, Mr. Speaker, that we make to the Polio Plus Fund for Rotary. Polio eradication is near and dear to all of us. Last week's guest speaker, when I made the gift to him, for those of you who weren't here, was visibly moved and pointed out that his mother was in fact a survivor of polio. It was huge. I mean, everyone who was here saw it, and everyone, I think, was touched by that. So today, with us today is Mr. Paul Thomas, the Polio Plus Chair from the Rotary Club of Abilene. Paul?
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it. I'm too loud here. So I sure appreciate your time. I came to talk about an event we're doing on October 21st. Everybody take out your phone and put October 21st in your phone. It's a district-wide polio event. It's going to be at the Botanic Gardens here in Fort Worth. And Red Steagall is going to sing at the end of the evening. It's going to start about noon. It's an all-day event. It's a family-friendly event. We're going to have bounce houses and the entire, it's called an Oktoberfest, so we're going to have some beer drinking. I don't know if y'all allocate that or not, but we're going to have a little bit of that, and wine. We're going to have some wine, and we're going to have some, we're looking for sponsorships. If anybody needs help with the project, this is the first notification you have that the project's going to happen. And this year, the goal is to inoculate 44 million children. So everybody always asks, where does the $150 million go? Well, we're going to try this year to inoculate 44 million children, and globally, there are 185,000 people working on this problem still today. So that's where the money goes. And I have a presentation about that. He's going to talk about it. But y'all look forward to the October 21st event, and help me out as best you can, and we'll be in touch. We're going to have some club-to-club competitions while you're there, and y'all are one of the most dynamic clubs in the state, or in the country, in the world, actually. And we're real proud that y'all are with us here in the district. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. So as I mentioned last week, each week I'm going to either spotlight a member or I'm going to talk about something Rotary for a few minutes. I was touched by that speaker last week, and as a result, I decided this week I think the first thing I'm going to lead off with is, let's talk about polio. Didn't find out until yesterday morning, though, that Paul was coming to visit today. So we're kind of overlapping on some of that, but this dovetails really, really nicely. Thank you, Paul. So first of all, can I have a show of hands of anyone who's had a family member or friend in their lifetime that they know of impacted by polio? Well, that's quite a few of y'all. What, about a third-ish? Okay, my grandmother had it. And I'm sure several people in this room, same type of thing, know someone who maybe a grandma's sister or somebody died, or braces or whatever have you. But I prepared a few notes about polio, and I'd like to read them off to you. I want to highlight Rotary International's relentless efforts in eradicating polio, a disease that's plagued humanity for far too long. Rotary, a global network of passionate individuals, including yourselves, has taken up the challenge with unwavering commitment and determination. But first, let's start with a few important dates. In 1894, the first major documented polio outbreak in the U.S. occurred in Vermont, killed 132 people, permanent paralysis. 1916, Rotary was 6 years old. Major polio outbreak in New York killed more than 2,000 people. That's 20 of these rooms right here. 6,000 plus across the U.S. died. 1929, Philip Dinker and Harvard University's Louis Agassiz Shaw Jr. invented an artificial respirator, the iron lung, to treat people with paralyzed lungs from polio. 1955, Dr. Jonas Salk created a vaccine that was declared safe and effective. In '79, Rotary International began its fight against polio with a multi-year project to immunize 6 million children in the Philippines. In 1985, Rotary International launched the Polio Plus campaign, the first and largest internationally coordinated private sector support of a public health initiative with an initial fundraising target of $120 million. We did this. Rotary did this. Y'all are part of that. In 1988, Rotary International and the World Health Organization launched the Global Polio Eradication Initiative. At that time, there were an estimated 350,000 cases of polio in 125 countries. I was a junior in high school. That doesn't seem like that long ago, and several of you my age or better can attest. That seems like just that long ago. Since then, Rotary's been at the forefront of the fight. Throughout their initiative, Rotary's partnered with governments, health organizations, and countless volunteers worldwide to tackle the devastating disease. In 2000, we vaccinated 550 million children, almost 10% of the world population by then, okay? 2006, polio was dropped to 4 countries instead of 125. That's huge. In 2020, the African region was free of wild polio. But the work goes beyond vaccines. We, you, invest in community engagement, leveraging our network to educate communities, promote hygiene, and strengthen the healthcare systems. By empowering local leaders and mobilizing volunteers, Rotary ensures that our efforts have a long-lasting impact well after polio has been eradicated. You are to be applauded for this because it's your efforts and the people that came before us in Rotary that put us here last year. Remember 1985, 350,000 cases? Last year, 23. So, with that, thank you very much. I appreciate your time. Thank you for listening to this. On with the program. Next up, Richard Knight, the newscast.
We're going to figure out that handshake salute thing at some point before your tenure's up with, Kurt. Thank you all for that rounding, thundering applause. Get this out of the gate now. I feel about as welcome as Lindsey Graham at a Donald Trump rally. Well, President Biden stopped off in England on his way to the NATO summit in Lithuania this past week. And it's reported while he was there, he made yet another social gaffe by breaking royal protocol. You see, during a meeting with King Charles, he touched His Royal Highness on his back, which is a no-no, unless it's a King Charles Spaniel, or if it's Camilla, the Queen Consort, doing the touching, if you know what I mean. Excuse me. Sorry. Yeah, okay, I'm good. I needed to make sure I didn't leave any evidence from my recent White House tour. Sorry. Talk about the scandal that won't die, but maybe it did finally. I don't know. Anyway, moving on. Let me see if this works. Bear with me here. Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. No, that didn't work the way I planned either. I was expecting ghoulish Michael Keaton with striped pajamas to show up and cause chaos and get me out of this newscast. But at any rate, the other Beetlejuice, which is a giant red star in the constellation of Orion, is about 500 light years away from us. And astronomers have observed the star going through an unusual pattern of brightening and dimming over the last several years, leading to speculation that the star may be entering its supernova phase and explode. Now, should that happen, the light from the explosion would be seen from there for nearly 4 months, but not to worry, it won't adversely affect life here. But then again, like most things, with a slight variation of a song that a rock band from a 1980s time travel movie used to sing, it ain't gonna matter 100,000 years from now when the star is actually expected to explode. In other White House news, it's been reported that President Biden has berated and used foul language towards various aides over the years, and apparently more recently, news reporters too, much to the chagrin of several media outlets. Now, my question is, how does that differ from any other cranky 80-year-old grandpa? I mean, 1 minute it's like, hey, come on, kids, come see Grandpa. Tell me about your life. What's going on? And next minute is, get away from me, you ungrateful, whiny brat. I mean, I do that now, and I'm nowhere close to 80. So, moving on. In local news, authorities have been making crackdowns and arrests over these so-called Fast and Furious style street takeovers. These underground events where drivers make coordinated effort to strategically block off intersections while other sets of drivers perform vehicle stunts. Now, they do this while trying to avoid the police. But someone needs to tell these rank amateurs that we, the Rotary Club of Fort Worth, are the OG street blockers for the city, because we shut down streets for parades, photo shoots, or just a random Tuesday, and we do it with the cops. Those punks better step off our turf, or there's going to be trouble. I'm telling you right now, and I'm getting off of my cranky grandpa tangent. Sorry. Finally, for entertainment this weekend, much better comedy can be heard from the 4-day weekend troupe performing tonight and tomorrow. The Scat Jazz Lounge has a full slate of artists performing each night this weekend. The first installment of the much-anticipated two-part Mission Impossible swan song, Dead Reckoning, opens this weekend. And for your dining pleasure, Toro Toro Downtown is featuring their bottomless brunch Saturday or Sunday from 10 to 2. I recommend the smoked tequila old fashions. The weather is going to be more of the same, temps in the hundreds, so get your outdoor stuff done early and say a prayer for the power grid. Thank you. Have a good weekend.
I've done the newscast exactly once for a reason. It's harder than it appears. It's harder than it appears. All right, next up, Carol Genovese, where you at? Come on. Carol Genovese is coming up, president of the Vincent Genovese Memorial Foundation, to give us some talk about the Veterans Committee.
Totally off subject. Aurora asked me, do you have another picture? And I said, I don't have time for that. But the funny thing is about that picture is Ann Sheets is next to me in that picture, and we actually sat next to each other on a flight to Florida and did not have it planned. And so I just love the memory of that. So who cares, it's not professional. But the veterans is so special to my heart, and I know it's special to y'all's heart too. We have a meeting afterwards today in the Imperial Room. If you're interested or you want to know about it, they're very short meetings, but I do want to share that one of the things we do, you don't have to do it, and you don't have to be on the Veterans Committee if you're interested in this, is once a month we have a pantry delivery to veterans through Meals on Wheels, and it's so rewarding, and I want to be able to do more of those and deliver these pantry bags to more veterans in our community. And if you would be interested in that, and even if you're not interested in being on a committee, talk to me or look me up. I would love to share about that. But come check out our veterans meeting after this meeting today. Thanks.
Thank you, Carol. Judy Youngs, come on up here. We got some money to give away today. Tell us about it. Judy Youngs is president and CEO of A Wish with Wings. Judy?
Thank you, President Captain Kirk. I humbly thank you. I'm excited today, on behalf of the Fort Worth Rotary Club, to present 2 grant presentations on behalf of the club. Our first grant of $1,500 is going to Project 4031. This is for supplies for their Wings volunteer program, which extends their services to terminally ill children and adults, supporting them and letting them know they are not alone while facing these challenges. Accepting for the organization is Christina Robertson. Christina? Our second grant is for $5,000 to Gill Children's Services. This grant will provide dental services to children in critical need, as well as support for other programs. The organization has secured a 2-for-1 in-kind match for the dental funds and a 1-for-1 match for the other programs, overall providing almost $14,000 of total charitable impact in the community with this grant. Accepting for the organization is Peyton Lair. Peyton?
Congratulations. Is that it?
Thank you, President Kirk.
You bet. Thank you very much. And congratulations to both of y'all. Great organizations. Next up, Secretary Maddie Compton for 2 second readings.
Good afternoon. We have 2 second readings today. The following proposed new members were submitted during the July 7th, 2023 program. If no objections are received through the voting process, the proposed member will be accepted into our club. The proposed members are Elizabeth Beck. Her title is attorney. Her company is Lee in Brazil, LLP. Her classification is law. And her proposer is past President Sean Snell. I move her election subject to attending a new member Rotary information session.
I have a motion. We have a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, this motion passes.
The second proposed member is Corey Harris. His title is Executive Director. His company is the American Heart Association. His classification, nonprofit, and the proposer is Connie Blake. I move her election subject to attending a new member Rotary information session.
Have a motion. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Both persons are hereby elected. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Now we have a new member introduction. Becky Burton, Girl Scouts of Texas, Oklahoma Plains. Come on up and tell us about her.
Good afternoon. I am very pleased to introduce my colleague and my friend, Cynthia Odom, today. Cynthia is the Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer for Girl Scouts of Texas, Oklahoma Plains, and she's served in this position for over 15 years. She also has served on some national Girl Scouts of the USA committees and serves as the chair of one of them. Cynthia has worked and volunteered and lived in the communities of Fort Worth and Arlington for many years. As a community connector and volunteer, she has served on several boards, including the Fort Worth chapter of the Links Incorporated for 8 years. She served on the board of Women's Policy Forum. She served with AIDS Outreach Center, the Junior League of Arlington, where she was also the president, and has served as a national board for the Association of Junior League International for a few years. She is a graduate of Leadership America, Leadership Texas, and Leadership Arlington. Her most recent awards are in 2019, she was the top 50 financial officer in the United States by the National Diversity Council, and in 2017, she was CFO of the Year, was honored with the CFO of the Year by the Fort Worth Business Press. I'm pleased to introduce you to Cynthia Odom.
I'm excited to be here with you today to join friends and to get to know new friends and roll up our sleeves and work in the community. I was told to share some fun facts, so I'm going to title those Fun, Family, and Football. I happen to be a football mom and wife. My son Christopher plays for the Cleveland Browns. He's a free agent right now and was on injured reserve. My son Clifton graduated from Baylor, Sic 'em Bears, but also was a graduate assistant under Coach Patterson at TCU, and now works for Jerry Keel at New Mexico State. And then I would love to take credit for all that athletic ability in the family, but Dad played 13 years in the NFL. And we came to this community because he came on a football scholarship to UTA. So I'm telling our age, because who remembers when University of Texas at Arlington had a football program? Yeah, so that is what's going on. My husband's tombstone is bring football back to UTA. That's all he talks about. So when you see me on Fridays and I'm a little frazzled, it's because I'm trying to figure out my football schedule for the weekend. So that's the fun facts. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and welcome to our club.
Thank you.
Let's work on getting the red badge turned to blue quickly.
Look forward to it.
Thank you very much.
you.
Where's Mitch? My program director. Anyway, thank you all very much. Okay. Looks like we're moving right there. So, chairman of the day is Mr. Wayne Trimmer, partner and director, Aquarian Capital, LLC. Come on up, sir.
Well, good afternoon. I can't tell you what a pleasure it is to introduce Chris. You know, growing up in Titusville, Florida as a kid, my dad worked at NASA, Gemini, Mercury, Apollo, Skylab, Shuttle. So this is a real treat for me. And as a Marine and a naval officer like Chris, I have some gouge here I've written on index cards. As you know, his bio, I could stand here and read it for about 20 minutes. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to hit some high points that I thought was interesting. To start with, Chris grew up in Maine, written with Sharpie on an index card, color-coded. Next, he was I guess, very competitive because he got into the Naval Academy. And it's not just getting in, you got to be nominated and then appointed. So he went through that 4-year education process with graduating with a mathematics degree. And to top that, the next in being competitive, he competed for a position with the Navy Special Warfare Command. And we all know that today is the SEAL program. So off to Bud School, basic underwater demolition SEAL, about a 6-month grueling training, which he graduated as a honor grad. After that, earning his trident assigned to the SEAL teams, he spent about 11 years as a Navy SEAL, operational deployments to the Mediterranean, Afghanistan, 2 deployments to Afghanistan, and even in the border of Pakistan, and some cave dwellers there that he was out to seek and destroy. So not limiting his capabilities, after 11 years in the Navy, active duty with the SEAL teams, he applied to be in the astronaut program. So that also is a grueling process of applying and being selected. So selected as an astronaut, he has multiple missions in space. You can read each one. If you go to the NASA website, you can just put his name in there and you can read just the details of each mission. So pretty exciting time, I'm sure, in his background. He was also the chief astronaut, which is over all the astronauts there at NASA, and they do the assignments and so forth. So we are proud to have him here in our local community as the president and CEO of the Medal of Honor Museum that they're building right here in Arlington. I'm sure he's going to fill us in on the details to that. He's a retired Navy captain and married, 5 kids, and just a really good background. Please read the bio. Chris, come to the stage and tell us about yourself.
You know, life is really interesting, and all of the background that was just read was never planned when I was a young man. I was just a normal kid playing sports, being a brother, being a son, being a neighborhood kid, and all of a sudden somewhere in school it dawned on me that, oh, you got to actually pay for college. Like, it's a thing. And some of you in the room probably remember the big book in the guidance counselor's office, and you thumb through that thing, and they'll Google search for colleges before they do it now. And I was doing that process, and I stumbled upon the Naval Academy and the pictures of the sharp-looking men and women marching in uniform. And my brother and dad and I, we always watched Army-Navy football games every December, and I realized, oh, those are the guys that play the football game. And it dawned on me that'd be a cool place to go, and at the bottom it said, it's free to go here. So I was like, this is just win-win all around. This is amazing. And so that's what got me on the path to the Naval Academy. And I want to share, just take a few minutes of my time and share that process that got me there, because it's fundamental to who I am today, and really, quite truthfully, is the reason why I'm standing before you. I read all that stuff, and it said in there you had to apply to your congressman's office, so I did that. I applied. I went to the interview in Augusta, Maine, the state capital, and it transpired, and I walked out of the room, and the staff member said, okay, good job, Cassidy, we'll take it from here. And I was naive 17-year-old, like, I'm good? Like, you don't need anything else from me? Nope, we got it, we'll take care of it. We'll take you under our wing and get you down the process. So that was the fall of my senior year in high school. Fast forward to the spring of my senior year in high school. Everybody's getting the thick or the thin envelopes if you're getting into school or not, and I was getting that from other places, but nothing from the Naval Academy. So finally I couldn't take it any longer, and I picked up the phone and called the admissions office, and the nice person on the other end said, oh, sure, I can help you, no problem. Tell me your name. I tell her, I hear rummaging through files. Can you spell that for me? I spell it, more files. What's your social security number? More files. I'm sorry, we don't have anything on you, son. You're not in our system. So it turns out you need to apply to the school itself as well as to your congressman's, but I missed a key piece of information. So here it is, the end of my senior year, and the place I really wanted to go to wasn't look like it was going to happen. Well, luck, divine intervention, whatever you believe in, my best friend and I had planned to join his father, who was taking a business trip the very next week from Maine to Washington, D.C. It's about an 8-hour drive. And we were going to just do sightseeing stuff in D.C. while his dad worked. And we did that, except one deviation to the plan is I took an afternoon and went from D.C. to Annapolis. It's like 30 minutes away. And walked into the admissions office, and the same woman's voice I recognized, and she said, oh yeah, you're the young guy from Maine, from New England. We'll take care of you. You need to go down the hall, third door on the right, Captain Malillo. He's the guy to talk to you, help get you all squared away. So I bebopped down the hall, turned the corner, Marine Corps. This is the first time I'd ever seen a poster of a Marine Corps person in life, like uniform, shoes, haircut, square jaw, the whole 9 yards. And I was very intimidated, but I knew, even my 17-year-old brain, I got to tell this guy my story. So I tell him my story. Total time in his office is like 4 or 5 minutes, and he nods a little bit and kind of gives me not much verbal or nonverbal communication and says, okay, I'll get back to you. So I leave, and the whole trip back to my hometown thinking, okay, well, I got to come up with a plan B because the Naval Academy is not in store for me. When the next week in school, get a phone call at the main office, and it's him on the phone. He said, hey, Cassidy, it's Captain Malillo. I got good news. I can get you into the Naval Academy prep school, but I need an answer right now on the phone if you're in or not. And I didn't know what the prep school was, where it was, what the time commitment was. But fundamentally, I knew that this was a door that was open, and it was going to shut, and it just mattered what side I was going to be on. And I said, yes, sir, I'm in. Thank you very much. Because of Captain Malillo giving me an opportunity, I truly wouldn't be here today. Because of him, I got to the prep school, which is 1 year in Newport, Rhode Island. If you maintain good grades, you can automatically go to the Naval Academy. At the Naval Academy, I met my first SEAL person and was inspired to pursue that as a career track. While I was in the SEAL teams, I met the first SEAL to become an astronaut. His name was Bill Shepard. And in talking with him at a cookout with a beer and hot dogs in our hand, he kind of told me how you become an astronaut. And that's what inspired me to pursue that. And 18 years at NASA later, I ended up being offered a position to get the National Medal of Honor Museum built for the nation, but right here in the DFW Metroplex. So because of Captain Malillo, somebody who my life intersected with for 4 or 5 minutes, a whole lifetime is open for me. So I wanted to share a few minutes of that story because it's fundamental to me, and I know this room is full of potential Captain Melillos, and I challenge you to be that person, and perhaps you have your own Captain Melillo in your life, so thank them when you get a chance. Incidentally, my wife has heard me say this story tens and tens of times, and right before my last launch in 2020, we had a party for friends and family, and it was a room like this, and she kept on asking me, what are you going to say to the crowd? I'm like, I don't know, they're my friends and family, I'll just thank them. And she said, you should tell the Captain Melillo story. So I said, okay, I'll tell the Captain Melillo story. Right when I got to the punchline, she interrupted me and said, Captain Melillo, will you please stand up? She had tracked him down, unbeknownst to me, invited him to the thing, and I got to hug him and shake his hand and thank him, look him in the eye, and personally thank him for the gift that he gave me. So anyways, thank you for indulging my story. It means a lot to me, so thank you. I could share lots of stories about SEAL experiences in Afghanistan, lots of stories about space flight. I'm here to tell you a little bit about the Medal of Honor Museum, and I'm happy to answer questions about any and all of that. But before I jump into the museum, I'll share something that's often the number one question I'm asked is how you pee and poop in space. I won't deal with that today at lunchtime. But the second question I'm often asked is, what were you thinking? What's it like? What's going through your head on launch day? What's it like? And so that the night before, all the preparations are done, you go to bed and you wake up and there's some instructions there that says, pack this bag for if you land here, pack this bag for have something to wear if you land in California, pack this bag, these bags are going back to Houston. So you do all that and you're standing there in just your gym shorts and your sneakers and t-shirt. You have a few hours to kill before lunch. You have lunch, coming out of lunch, you go to the suit-up room, same exact suit-up room as Neil and Buzz and all those guys, Mercury and Gemini, Apollo astronauts. It's amazing history there. The same ugly Naugahyde recliners. And we sit down, we get the suit on, and normally, you've put your suit on many times in your experience in training, but on launch day, it somehow feels different. The suit technicians that's assigned to you, zipping up every zipper with intent focus on each one of those zipper pulls. Every click of the mechanisms, listening, you and he and eyes looking at each other and say, yep, that's good. It just feels more intense. So that intensity carries over to the bus. You come down an elevator, you get on a bus, and drive on this bus out to the launch pad. And it's a long way. For good reason, they don't put launch pads very close to stuff. So you drive out there, and you think about that too while you're driving out there. Like, there's a reason why this is a 30-minute ride. And I remember turning the corner to go up the pad, it's kind of a little hill where the pad is, there down at Kennedy Space Center. And it was nighttime, and the shuttle was illuminated on all sides by these gigantic lights just beaming the thing. And you've been to the launch pad many, many times. It's usually a very industrial area, forklifts, hard hats, trucks moving around. Launch day, nothing. None of that. The only vehicle going there is the bus you're in. You get out, the doors open. I remember looking up, and you can almost feel the energy trapped up in that thing. The rocket is fully fueled, and the fuel is very cold. That cold temperature difference between the outside and it creates an ice thing on the outside of the rocket. It creates the metal kind of bending and moaning and groaning, and you can actually hear that noise as the structure is just holding in the energy that's going to about release the shuttle here momentarily. Momentarily, though, is 3 hours, because you get in, you get buckled in, the process starts, and then you sit there and wait, and then finally at T-minus 9 minutes is when you get the go, no-go for launch, and we're listening to the folks in Mission Control as they go around the room, and we know the cadence, and they say, GNC, each one of these is a position in Mission Control. GNC, go. FIDO, go. Surgeon, go. Weather, which is always a big one. And we got the go. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, this is on. And my heart was pumping. But there was probably a few moments of, wow, I can't believe I'm actually here. And a quick shift to, all right, I got stuff to do, checklist to follow, eyeballs have to move different places, and kind of sorting through the experience that way. Then the rocket lights, and you just kind of can't even believe how much energy there is just pushing you to the heavens. And it was very, very bumpy. The shuttle, if you can remember, had white solid rocket motors and an orange tank in the middle. The solid fuel in those white things were burned very poorly, or not burned very bumpy, not smoothly, I guess is the word I'm looking for. So it was so violent and bumpy that it surprised me, actually. And I remember thinking, this is nuts, but if the commander's cool, I'm cool. I looked over him, he's just like, Houston, we have roll program, all just cool as a cucumber. I'm like, okay, we're good, we're in good shape. And then off we go, and there's so many experiences with spaceflight. I'm happy to entertain any of those questions, but I could go on and on. Just very, very privileged. All of us that have got to do it feel that way. We thank every day that we get the opportunity to look at Earth from that viewpoint, because it gives you this perspective that Earth is a spaceship for everybody, and we're all in it together, and everybody's a crewmate. We all got to be crewmates together. So it didn't fundamentally change who I am, but it gave me a great appreciation of this we're all in it together kind of feeling. So in 2021, I was wrapping up my military. I remained active duty military all the way through my NASA time. You can think of it, my duty station was the Johnson Space Center. My paycheck came from the Navy and all that stuff, which allowed me to then retire militarily. And as I was going through that process at the end of 2021, my good friend, who's a part of the Medal of Honor Museum board, he called me and said, hey, Chris, what are you going to do when you retire? I'm like, I don't know, improve my free throw shooting or my putting or something. But, and he said, no, all seriousness, what are you going to do? And so he said, why don't you come up to Dallas and see what we're doing, learn a little bit about the project that we've got with the Medal of Honor Museum. And at first I was a little bit unsure because, I'm not really a museum guy and I don't know how to build one. I've never been a fundraiser before. But when I reflected, moments in life where you sit there with your head on the pillow, staring at the ceiling at night, trying to sleep, or chatting with your spouse, I was doing that, and I realized that 28 years in the military, the thing I loved most was a sense of service to the country. And if I told my 17-year-old self this, that kid would roll his eyes at me and go, that's not true. But it really is. It was so meaningful to me to feel like I was giving to the nation. And so as I thought about what could be next, and then learned about this project, it seemed like a perfect fit, and it has been, and because we're really, really proud to bring this thing, not only on behalf of the Medal of Honor recipients of our country, but also to give something meaningful to the citizens of our country. Which, quick intro, there's been 3,515 Medals of Honor awarded since Abraham Lincoln put the medal into existence in 1861. And 65 of those people are living today. There's been one female, Mary Walker. She has an amazing story in the Civil War time frame. All the 65 living today are men. The last World War II gentleman, Woody Williams, he passed away one summer ago. And we have one Korean War veteran with us remaining, and then about 35, 38 Vietnam era gentlemen, and the rest are global war on terror era folks. There's a quick video, Tom, if we could hit play on that, kind of give you an overview.
The President of the United States meets so many extraordinary individuals.
Among the most impressive are those who earn the Medal of Honor, the highest accolade our country bestows upon a member of the armed services.
The Medal of Honor is awarded for bravery in combat to those who go above and beyond the call of duty,
risking their lives to save others, overcoming incredible odds, often making the ultimate sacrifice.
Of the estimated 40 million people who have served in the United States military since the Civil War, fewer than 4,000 have received the honor.
We salute these extraordinary Americans. We will never forget their sacrifices. We will always be inspired by their heroism.
Let's all come together to build a museum in their honor.
The National Medal of Honor Museum.
On a mission to inspire America.
Donate today at mohmuseum.org.
Now that mission certainly is the museum, but there's a couple other aspects of it as well. So the museum physically located here in the center of the Metroplex in Arlington. If you haven't driven by there recently, it's if you're familiar with the area, there's a small lake. It's called Mark Holtz Lake that's just on the north side of the old ballpark called Choctaw Stadium now. And just to kind of narrow you in, there's an esports arena venue there. On the other side of the lake used to be an old Little League ball field. Perhaps some of you are familiar with that. That ball field is no more, and that 5-acre plot of land is where we're constructing the museum. We've been 1 year into construction now. March 25th every year is Medal of Honor Day. So by no coincidence, we began construction last year, Medal of Honor Day, March 25th. And so we're about 15 months under construction. If you drive by on I-30, you can actually see the steel outline of the building. It's not closed in yet, but it will be soon. With my old job, we used to say, no Bucks, no Buck Rogers, and that's really true with everything, particularly nonprofit museum building. And so we had to demonstrate to the city of Arlington, worst case for them was the ballpark goes away and we dig a hole and run out of money. So we had to have $150 million, which was the cost of the build, in pledges or a loan, and we did that to allow us to break ground. And so since then, we've continued the fundraising campaign to get to opening, which is scheduled for March 25th of 2025. That's when we'll have the opening of the museum. Now, I mentioned there's other parts as well. The museum can only impact those that come visit, so we really want to, as the president said, on a mission to inspire America. How do you inspire America if you're only located in Arlington, Texas? Well, we decided the answer to that for us is through an institute, and we'll inspire people with programmatic content in 3 centers: a youth center, which we're calling the Center for Character Excellence, which we're very, very proud and excited about partnering with initially local school districts. Arlington ISD, for obvious reasons, has been our great first partner, and the surrounding ISDs have joined us as well, where I think we'll get some financial support from the state of Texas for the education arm, and we look to really go nationally with that. And how we're doing that is through a partnership with the NFL and the Dallas Cowboys. There's they have a program called the Character Playbook, and that's an electronic curriculum that's available for free for schools, and it's in, I think, 27,000 schools already right now. And we just in the last month, attached a Medal of Honor module to that program, which will be in this next school year. So we're excited about that. An adult center in the Institute, and the first program for that happened about a month ago. 25 people came to Arlington from different communities, different diverse sectors of employers, and there was 4 days right there in Arlington where they were inspired by stories of courage and sacrifice from 3 Medal of Honor recipients who were there, participated in that: Kyle Carpenter, Afghanistan; General Brady, Pat Brady, Vietnam helicopter; and Jack Jacobs, another Vietnam era gentleman. So we're excited about that content, and we're putting out, rounding out our menu of what the other offerings will be through the Institute. So super excited about that. And the third and final aspect of the project is a monument in DC. When you say National Museum, your first thought is, well, why the heck isn't it in Washington, DC? The answer to that is because, well, initially we thought it would be. Turns out it's very, very hard, both procedurally and financially, to build a museum in DC, and you're competing against free ones with the Smithsonian. So we opted to put a monument on the mall in DC, and we're going through the legislation as we speak, and then the museum elsewhere. So that's kind of the overview of the project. We're really, really excited to be doing this, and couldn't be more proud to bring it to Texas and bring it to the Metroplex, and it's the center of the country. This can-do, buildable spirit that exists here in the Metroplex, particularly I'll give a shout out to Arlington. They've been amazing to work with, amazing partners, and we're just so very, very fortunate. So anyways, with that, I'm happy to answer any questions with the remaining of the time. Yes, sir.
I believe you're one of the few to be launched from Russia and from Cape Kennedy. You want to comment about the differences and how long you've been in space?
Good question. Over the 3 missions, I've spent a little over a year of my life on the space station. The shuttle missions, all shuttle missions were short duration, 2 weeks long, limited by how much oxygen we could put on the system. And then my other 2 missions, I launched in a Russian Soyuz from Kazakhstan, and trained for months and months in a place called Star City, which is just outside of downtown Moscow, where they live and train. The physics is the same. Whether you're blasting off from Kazakhstan or Florida, you still got to overcome gravity. It's the same in both places, and you still got to light a big giant rocket for about 9 minutes and get high up in the altitude. So that part doesn't change, and the what could happen if goes wrong pretty much is the same. So there's a baseline of similarity. Where the differences come is one, language. In the shuttle, all of my crewmates, we all spoke English. The books are in English. The computer screens are in English. The person yakking to us on the radio is speaking in English. Not the case in a Soyuz. Everything's in Russian. So that was probably the hardest part for me, was to be able to effectively communicate with those guys. Russian language is a huge part of our training and preparation. The other difference is the physical size of the capsule. The shuttle is like a King Cab F-350. It's big. It's got a huge pickup payload bay where you put stuff. It's got comfy seats and cup holders and USB things all over the place. That was the shuttle. And the Soyuz is about as, not exaggerating, about as big around as the white table you're sitting in, and then 3 big puffy people stuffed in it, and very uncomfortable. But no, I'm not knocking it. It's just that it can be smaller, which requires less fuel. There's no cargo, and so it's just designed for a different purpose. So you can tell it's engineered slightly differently. The NASA way of doing engineering and designing something is to you open up a computer, you send a command that enables a command to happen, and then you go to another tab and you send the command. But what that does is tell another computer to move something that then allows another thing to move, and it all happens eventually. With the Soyuz and the Russian engineering philosophy, it's like a big giant red lever with a cotter pin in it that prevents you from moving it when you're not supposed to, and you remove the pin and you go and you physically move a thing that releases some firing pin that blows stuff up and separates, jettisons modules. I'm semi-exaggerating, but it's pretty true. So the part that I can't knock is very little can fail in that system. So it's just a different design philosophy where we have more redundancy, but also more paths to failure in the newer way. And the older way, it just works. Yeah.
So how do you pee and poo in space?
Well, it's simply the need to go is the same. Nothing changes.
I know you have a topping out ceremony coming up pretty soon. What is you've raised a ton of money to get the thing open. What is the long-range plan for sustainability in business?
Oh, that's a great question, and something that we put a lot of attention to. There's a lot of, and we've gone around the country and talked to a lot of recently opened and few years of operating museums, and gleaned their lesson learned. And a lot of them are it's tough to make it break even every year, or relying on donor money every single year to pay. And I sincerely appreciate that and the struggles with that. And so we're trying to make our decisions and base it on a model of profitability, and I'm sure every organization does. But to that end, the institute programs that will be for adults will have a fee to it, an entry fee, in an effort to fully endow the youth programs. We don't want there to be any barrier to entry for the youth programs, of course. So that is the model on the institute side. On the museum side, the lesson we heard loud and clear was multi-use multi-function space, so that when you're running little people and big people through the museum during the day, then at nighttime you can have functions in Rotary Club meetings and this type of thing on a fee-based model. So, and there's a few other things in there as well. Of course, you got to have a retail space and these sort of things. So all of that largely based on lessons learned that we heard loud and clear from other museums. Yes, sir.
So what are your thoughts on the privatization of space flight, safety protocol, et cetera, especially considering what has happened with submersibles?
Yeah.
Safety protocol saying you think they're cutting costs.
Right. Yeah, the privatization of space is something I don't want to speak for all my former colleagues, but all of us pretty much share the same opinion that we're very excited about it. I think that what it excites people, the nation, is seeing normal people, granted, these people are not normal because they can write a $30 million check, but eventually the price will come down. When Orville and Wilbur first started flying, it wasn't for everybody, but now you can fly out of DFW anytime you want. So I think that will ultimately lead to a place where space flight is a common thing, or if you want to do it, you can. Now, on the safety side of things, I don't worry about it too much because it's bad business model for them too to blow people up. And I'm not joking, I'm being totally serious. It doesn't help their business model if it's a dicey proposition to buy the ticket. So I think, real quick, I know we're running short on time, but it was interesting for me to be at NASA when SpaceX and NASA first started working together, because in the early days of SpaceX, this was in like 2003, 4, 5, something like that, they were just a bunch of young people, engineers, drawing stuff on an envelope. They give it to a welder guy, and they make stuff, and then they test it, and it would or wouldn't blow up, and then they keep testing it, and that's how they iterated on it. But they were super fast and agile with their company model, and they remain that way. And that kind of freaked out NASA a little bit, which was more methodical, slow, lessons learned in blood over years. And the SpaceX engineers couldn't grasp why NASA was so resistant to change, and NASA engineers couldn't grasp why the SpaceX engineers were so flippant with risk, which they really weren't, but in their NASA mind. And the gears of those two machines don't line up. And it was interesting to watch over the course. It took 5 years or 6 years, but eventually the SpaceX team grew to appreciate why NASA was a little slower and more resistant to things, because it means lives. And the NASA engineers realized, hey, we don't have to be so stuck in our ways. We can open our eyes to new things. So watching those two cultures come together was an interesting process, and I think we're there largely now as the commercial companies and NASA, the government programs, working very much together in cooperation. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Chris, thank you very much for coming out today. We really, really enjoyed this. As I said earlier, or hinted at, as a memento of this occasion, we'd like to present you with a little token. This is to commemorate, we do give to the Polio Plus Fund in your name for this. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right. Next week, 7/21, the new Fort Worth Entrepreneur Center, a new era for entrepreneurship and innovation. Trey Bowles, the managing director of Techstars Physical Health Fort Worth, and a guest panel will be here. With that, no more business. This meeting is adjourned.